Welcome to Dabsy Stories. Drop a like on the video and subscribe so we can continue making videos like this one. My son Alex was 12 when his world shattered. He and his friend were riding their bikes down Maplewood Drive, the evening sun painting long shadows on the pavement. They skidded around the wrought-iron gate marking our community's entrance, when two men in black jackets emblazoned HOA security leapt from a parked SUV. "Stop right there," one shouted, shrinking his voice into a bark. Without warning, they yanked Alex off his bike. His friends screamed, but they slammed Alex against the metal gate. A sickening crack echoed as his back arched unnaturally. The second man twisted Alex's arm, then struck him with a steel-tipped baton. Alex cried out, his spine snapping in 3 places. Blood blossomed on his shirt. I was inside, half-packing dinner when the panic call came. I burst into the street, tossing groceries aside as neighbors fled. Alex lay crumpled, eyes wide with shock. I kicked at the attackers, drawing one away while the other fled. I scooped Alex into my arms, pressing towels to his wounds as he wept. "It hurts, Dad." Sirens arrived moments later. Paramedics loaded Alex into the ambulance, his spine stabilized but fractured. I followed, heart pounding. In the ER, surgeons confirmed the worst: multiple spinal fractures, potential paralysis. As they wheeled him away, I clenched my fists. Those officers had vanished. No badge numbers, no IDs. Weeks later, I stepped into my new role as Warden of Maplewood County Jail. My appointment had nothing to do with timing. It was duty. But fate seated me behind the very walls where those men would be held. I'd helped draft the intake protocols. Now I'd oversee their confinement. Detective Ramirez tracked them to a shell company hired by our HOA board. Charges of impersonating law enforcement, child endangerment, and aggravated assault were pending. Their court date loomed, and so did mine. Tomorrow I would process them through the Sally Port I managed, watch them cross the threshold from entitled enforcers into inmates. Inside my office, I reviewed their mugshots. Davis and Holt. Stoic, arrogant, oblivious they terrorized a child. I flicked through Alex's medical scans. The shattered vertebrae now held by metal plates, his future uncertain. Fury and resolve blazed in my chest. I would wield the power of the law as they had perverted it. That night, I tucked Alex into the hospital bed. His pale face showed both pain and courage. I kissed his forehead. "Tomorrow," I whispered, "they'll learn what justice feels like." He managed a faint smile, eyes heavy but hopeful. Outside, cold wind rattled the jail's barred windows, those bars soon to cage the men who broke my boy. In the quiet that followed, I made a silent vow. As warden, I would ensure they faced every rule they once twisted to harm. Alex's spine might be broken, but our bond and my commitment to justice remained unshakable. 6 weeks later, Alex lay in a rehabilitation ward, framed by metal bars on his wheelchair seat. Each morning, I wheeled him outside to taste sun on his face. His spine mended slowly, but his spirit fought harder. I carried coffee to his bedside and watched him grin as I tuned the morning news. One headline caught my eye: HOA security scam uncovered, more arrests expected. Detective Ramirez appeared with fresh case files. "We've unearthed financial records showing the HOA board funded those fake officers," he said. His tone held surprise. But here's the twist: you weren't the only target. Ramirez slid me a printout, a note in the records from the board treasurer Larkin, ordering special measures against families who challenged board policies. He'd singled out me because my father had been a judge's advisor. They wanted to scare us into silence. My blood ran cold. The violence on Alex had been personal, not random. It was meant to humiliate me, the son of a former legal luminary. The board used their power to break a child's back, all to protect pet projects and inflate property values. I felt rage and grief mingle as Ramirez described the new charges: conspiracy, extortion, racketeering, and hate crimes against our family's legacy. Even Karen Peterson, the HOA compliance officer, received an indictment for coordinating the attack. That afternoon, I wore my warden's uniform to the county courthouse. Alex sat beside me in a borrowed wheelchair, both of us arriving together. Neighbors lined the steps, forming a silent guard of honor. Mateo, Alex's friend and witness, waved a banner: "Justice for Alex." Inside, the prosecutor called Larkin to the stand first. Larkin's face drained of color when shown his own emails. "I ordered the operation," he confessed. "I needed compliance." His voice cracked under cross-examination. When asked why he targeted a child, he stammered, I thought his father would back down. Next, the fake officers, Davis and Holt, gave video statements. They admitted they followed Larkin's orders to teach him a lesson. Watching them repeat their cruelty on screen felt like reliving the worst night of my life. Then came Karen's turn. She tracked me into the courtroom, tears in her eyes. I thought I was doing right, she sobbed. I believed in the rules. The judge's gavel paused in midair. Your rules nearly killed a boy and threatened a community. You will answer for that. The judge handed down a preliminary ruling. Larkin and Peterson would be held without bail pending trial. Davis and Holt remanded to my jail, same cells they once oversaw under maximum security. Plot twist. I learned Larkin had intended to bribe the prosecutor, had bribed him, until Mateo's bank slip and a hidden recorder exposed the corruption. That evidence voided any deals Larkin hoped to cut. Back at Maplewood County Jail, I processed Davis and Holt through the same intake line they'd built. I scanned their fingerprints and strapped them into their cells. Then I turned to Karen. She trembled as I read her charges aloud. Obstruction of justice, child endangerment, conspiracy to commit violent assault. I slid the cell door shut behind her. She pounded the bars, sobbing for mercy. I was wrong, she cried. I never meant. Her voice trailed into anguish. That night, as storm clouds gathered, I drove home through empty streets. A lightning flash revealed Alex's pale face in the passenger seat. He whispered, "They won't hurt anyone else, right?" I clenched the steering wheel. "Not on my watch," I replied. At home, I tucked Alex into his bed like pillows propped to ease his spine. He drifted into sleep, clutching a model gavel I'd given him. I lingered by his door, thinking of the power I held now, power once misused by men who broke my child. I vowed to guard that power with honor. Outside, wind-rattled shutters. In their cells, Larkin's lies, Davis's fear, Karen's remorse, and Holt's regret circled like ghosts. Justice had turned the tables, and for the first time since that night, I slept, knowing our truth had struck back against entitlement and violence. Morning light spilled through thick clouds as I arrived at the jail, ledger in hand. Carter's progress weighed on me. His back brace was tighter today, but he managed 2 more steps with the walker. I dropped his physical therapy progress report into my pocket. He was defying the odds, but the shadow over our victory lingered. Larkin's arrest had rattled the HOA board, yet 2 more members, Morales and the landscaping chair, were implicated in approving the fake security patrols. Evidence from behind-the-scenes emails pointed to a cabal determined to suppress dissent and inflate assessments for their own gain. I needed to root out every last conspirator. That afternoon, I convened a special meeting in the Warden's conference room. Ramirez, Sarah, our prosecutor, and Detective Lee joined me. I laid out internal memos showing how HOA funds were funneled through shell accounts to pay Davis, Holt, and Karen. I also had witness statements from landscapers who installed hidden cameras at my home to track Carter's activities. Proof Morales violated privacy laws. Plot twist. Hidden in Larkin's digital trail was a final order. A maintenance shutdown of the community's power grid during last year's heat wave, engineered to force residents to buy HOA-approved generators at premium prices. Several elderly neighbors had been hospitalized. The fake patrols were just one arm of a broader scheme of extortion and fear. Sarah nodded. We'll charge them with racketeering, elder endangerment, and wire fraud. Lee added, we need search warrants for Morales' home and financial records. I stood, resolve hardening. Do it, and let's freeze all remaining HOA accounts until we dismantle this network. Early next morning, the jail's perimeter went quiet except for the hum of the generator powering life support units. I signed the arrest warrants for Morales and the landscaping chair Jones and personally escorted deputies to the HOA office. There, we seized computers, hard drives, and safe deposit box keys. Back at the jail, Jones arrived in a white SUV under police escort. His face was drawn. He avoided eye contact with Karen, Davis, and Holt. Morales was brought in moments later, trembling. I processed them through the same sally port, the clicks of the cell doors echoing like final verdicts. Over the next week, court sessions moved quickly. Community members testified about heat wave hospitalizations, intimidation tactics, and forged maintenance orders. The judge listened, her expression grave. Morales' remorse rang hollow when she claimed ignorance. I trusted the board, she said. Jones insisted he only followed operational directives. When the verdicts came, both were found guilty on multiple counts: conspiracy, racketeering, child and elder endangerment. Morales received 15 years, Jones 12. Their sentences would run concurrent with Larkin's 20 years, ensuring they'd never return to those HOA halls. Meanwhile, inside the jail, I oversaw their intake and security classifications. All four conspirators, Davis, Holt, Karen, Morales, and Jones, now shared the same block. The first day, I watched Karen hover near Carter's old cell. She flinched when I walked by. The taste of powerlessness must have been harsh. One evening, I passed by Holt's cell and noticed a map scribbled on a scrap of paper, outlining escape routes through the ventilations. He'd abandoned that plan when he realized the entire wing was under 24-hour lockdown. Still, the embers of rebellion had not died. I made a note to remove any remaining vulnerabilities. No ladder rungs, no loose vents. At home, Carter's physical therapist called with good news. He'd stand unsupported for 5 seconds today. I wheeled him outside. Son warmed his back brace. Neighbors cheered. Mateo handed Carter a homemade badge reading Honorary Warden. Carter pinned it proudly. That night, I drafted a letter to the county commissioners recommending permanent oversight of all HOA security contracts and a civilian review board. The abuses we uncovered demanded systemic reform. I signed my name, Warden Daniels, and added, "Never again should entitled officials terrorize the vulnerable." In the jail, news spread of the upcoming sentencing for Morales and Jones. Karen, Davis, and Holt flocked near the cell door, whispering. I bypassed them, passing through the locked gate, keys jangling. Power had shifted completely. As I secured the last lock, I looked back at their cell block. Behind each barred door sat those who shattered my son's childhood, and my role was to ensure they spent their worst days inside these walls. Tomorrow, I would testify at the sentencing hearing. But tonight, I savored a quiet victory. Every conspirator caught, every life support line honored, every vulnerable resident protected. Justice, hard-won and unyielding, stood firm, just like Carter would one day stand again. Sentencing day arrived under a bleak winter sky. I arrived at the courthouse in my warden's uniform, Carter beside me in his wheelchair, brace gleaming beneath his jacket. Neighbors lined the steps, holding banners, "No more fake cops," and "Justice for Carter." Inside, the packed gallery murmured as Davis, Holt, Karen, Morales, and Jones were let in, their faces drawn. The judge reviewed each defendant's charges: aggravated assault on a minor, racketeering, extortion, elder endangerment, and impersonation of law enforcement. First came Larkin, already serving 20 years. Now each co-conspirator faced decades: Davis and Holt, 30 years, Karen, 25, Morales, 15, Jones, 12. I took the stand. "These men and women betrayed every trust our community placed in them," I said, voice steady. "They used false authority to terrorize children and elders. They broke my son's spine, and they threatened us all. In my role as warden, I see daily what real authority means. It protects life, not destroys it." I sat as the judge nodded gravely. Next, Carter spoke. His voice was soft but clear. "They hurt me," he said, turning toward the defendants. "I almost couldn't walk again, but I'm learning to stand. If they learn nothing else, let them learn that hurting children has a price." His words echoed in the silence. Finally, the judge delivered sentences, the full terms as recommended, all without parole. The defendants were handed over to deputies. As cuffs clicked, they looked at us, no mercy in their eyes. Back at Maplewood County Jail that evening, I oversaw their return to Block C. I watched as each defendant was placed in solitary confinement for initial processing, necessary for violent offenders. Their meals were reduced to restricted diet rations under program rules, starve time for disciplinary defiance. Karen, who refused her first meal in protest, now faced the choice: comply or endure hunger behind bars. Across the yard, I joined Carter and neighbors at the visitation window. They pressed their faces against the glass. Carter pointed at Davis and Holt on the other side, then at me. "Dad, they'll think twice now," he said with resolve. I nodded, squeezing his hand through the barrier. "Yes, son, they will." Weeks later, the HOA board was dissolved and replaced with a resident-led council. The community enshrined protections against private security forces in local ordinance. The drawbridge gate was removed, symbolizing openness, not exclusion. At home, Carter practiced standing without his walker. He managed 10 seconds today. I captured it on video and emailed it to the jail's programming office, proof that strength overcomes. The warden's responsibilities weighed heavy, but guiding real justice gave them purpose. That night, I locked the jail's main gate, secure, unyielding, but just. Rules were meant to protect, not oppress. In my office, I mounted Carter's honorary warden badge beside my commission. Outside, the quiet yard lay under frost and stars. Tomorrow, I would testify at a state hearing to ban private HOA cops statewide. But tonight, I closed the door on Block C, where those who broke my son's spine would spend their days and feel the full measure of law they once twisted. Justice served cold as steel stood eternal. The end.